It's a real pleasure for me to introduce a fourth generation vintner from Livermore and the son of one of our most esteemed members, John Concannon.
Well, I don't know how to follow that auction. That was pretty exciting.
Come back next week.
Yeah. So just so you know, I mean, both Dad and I signed that, so it's worth a nickel more on eBay. I checked last year. I want to thank you all very much for the chance, the opportunity to speak to you, to be invited. What I kind of wanted to do today was, share a little bit of our history, what we've done, try to cover maybe 129 years in 10, 15 minutes here, and what we're doing moving forward. So I've kind of entitled my presentation Blending Tradition with Innovation. And we're Irish. Who'd think an Irishman would be making wine? So 100,000 welcomes. And Dad and I, we welcome you as well to a little glimpse into our history and where we came from. So really, you need to go back to this young chap here on the left, James Concannon. This was my great-grandfather. He was born on St. Patrick's Day in Ireland in 1847, so we had a bit of the luck of the Irish in our family from the get-go. And like millions of immigrants, he came to America at age 17 in search of a better life. Knew enough English when he got off the boat in Boston to be able to read signs he saw everywhere that said, "Irish need not apply. Welcome to America." And he met and married my great-grandmother. These are their wedding portraits, and they moved west. There were better opportunities on the west coast, and they landed in the heavy Irish mission-populated district of San Francisco. He had a couple different business ventures. The one where he really kind of made some money at was he had a franchise for this really hot technology of the 1870s. It was like the iPhone 5 of today. Everybody wanted one. It was called rubber stamps. And this was a huge leap in technology. And he had a very small territory he covered from Canada to Mexico that he covered on horseback. And so needless to say, he wasn't home very much. We know he was home at least 10 times in 10 count them, they're all there. So great-grandmother finally said, enough's enough, you need to build us a home and help raise this family. So they were very friendly with Archbishop Alemany. Alemany was a very powerful figurehead in the church back then. Alemany Boulevard, major thoroughfare in San Francisco. And he encouraged great-grandfather to get into the production of altar wine for the church. They had some very detailed geological maps, and he could have asked, told them to go anywhere, Napa, Sonoma, Paso Robles, but he said Livermore. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So again, he built a home. It's still out on the property. We raised 4 generations in that home, and it's still there today. There they are out for a little Sunday drive. I feel sorry for that horse with all his kids loaded in that Surrey. And he went back to learn from the best, a little place called Chateau de Chem in France. He found that our soil and climate was very similar to the Rhone region in France. And he brought back Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc cuttings. Back then there were no label laws. You could just blatantly put Chateau de Chem or Chateau Concannon on there. I think the TTB would have some issues with that today. So there's James Concannon, our founder. Why Livermore? Well, Livermore has a lot of rich history. A Livermore winery took a gold medal at the Paris Exposition long before Bottle Shock ever did it in 1976. It was Cresta Blanca Winery. And But why Alemany told my great-grandfather to plant here in Livermore is for really 2 main reasons. First is our orientation. We are one of only 2 valleys in all of California that is oriented east to west. So what that means is we maximize that maritime influence coming through the Golden Gate Bridge. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we all know it. It's like somebody flips a light switch and that, it'll drop 40 degrees. So the grapes like that. Warm days elevate the sugars and acids, cool nights arrest and hold it. The second reason is the soil. 70% rock. Our property sits on an alluvial fan very similar to the Graves region in France. And what that does is it allows every vine, every berry to ripen nice and consistently. Dad always told me growing up, if you don't have anything to do, go pick up some rocks. So I guess I didn't have a lot to do because we had a lot of rock walls out there. Grandfather, Dad's dad, second generation, got us through Prohibition, Great Depression. He was a captain in the cavalry. Cheryl, that bottle that you want is the Captain Joe Petit Syrah. This is a recipe we found several years ago, and we recreated this recipe that he would make up for his friends and family at the holidays. captain in the Cavalry Mobile Division, very distinguished unit. He had a lieutenant that reported to him by the name of Patton, so he did okay, became a general. And then my grandfather reported to this gentleman, John Pershing. John Pershing is the highest decorated general in American history. This is a letter from John Pershing we have in our memorabilia wall area, thanking him for that wine that we just auctioned off. So again, got us through Prohibition, the Great Depression, the dark 13 years. They say a lot of people found religion during that time. It was one of the few ways. Yeah, agree. But you know, there were really only a handful of wineries that were legally open that were producing a label during Prohibition. You had to have a letter of dispensation from every diocese to legally make it. So there are about 5 that I'm aware of, and Concannon was one of them. There's Dad on a tractor at age 5. Captain Joe on the horse in our mule team, 1936. And he also had a little time, probably a lot of people in here recognize this chap here. A lot of times I speak to younger people and they have no idea who this is. Groucho Marx, he was on You Bet Your Life. I tell the young people it was like the American Idol show of the time. It was the #1 rated show on NBC. I think he won $200, right, Dad? Did pretty good. And you know, we're known for a lot of firsts at Concannon, and this is one we're very proud of. America's first professional female winemaker, Catherine Vita. She was a Hungarian ballerina that escaped Budapest during fascism, and she was our winemaker from 1950 to 1960. And she taught Dad the principles of winemaking before he took over in '61. So you know, you got an Irishman starting a winery, why not have a Hungarian ballerina making it? Great-grandfather was always fond of saying it's not a matter of nationality, it's a matter of application. Meaning, you know, just go out and do it. There's Dad. It's my favorite picture of him coming out of a wine barrel. Dad's been at the helm for over 50 years. This was a picture I took back in '07. It was in Times Square. You see your dad with his hands out like Moses. It's enough to shake a son up. That was basically, he won his Lifetime Achievement Award in 2007 with Jerry Lohr and Bob Gallo. He was named Man of the Year a few years ago, and one of those reasons was for this contribution, America's first Petite Syrah. He was the first to make that a varietal in 1961. So here we are, you know, 4 generations later. Great-grandfather founded it, Captain Joe, through Prohibition, Great Depression. Dad been at the helm for over almost 60 years now. And then I'm kind of just walking around in the vineyards looking all confused and pissed off looking here. You know, so it's great to have all this history, but you know, where are we going with all this? You know, what is our future? And you know, any of you that have been driving by over the last 3-4 years, you've probably been seeing some activity going on. We just a few years ago completed a 10-year, $30 million revitalization project to the estate. You know, after 130 years, you got to do a little house cleaning. First phase, we wanted to get the vineyards in good shape. Second phase was we needed to build a winery to take us into the next century. We built this 44,000 square foot state-of-the-art solar-powered winery in 2007. We've already outgrown it. We just opened up 2 weeks ago a big sister next door, a 50,000 square foot one for a lot of our sister brands that we have. So you know, since I've been back, I've really noticed that we're really preserving a way of life, our family, our heritage, our old winemaking techniques. And I thought, well, how do you get that into one word? And the word I came up with was conservancy. Conservancy means preserving a way of life. And saw a very disturbing trend coming on several years ago. Last year's census data really confirmed it. Over 3 million acres of farmland a year in the United States are lost to urban development. And I thought, well, that's a big number, but I couldn't get my head around it. So if you do the math, that's 342 acres an hour gone. Now that really hit me. So, you know, with the Tri-Valley Conservancy program, this was something very, very important to us several years ago. So along with other wineries and growers, we took all of our land and we gave away our land rights. We put it in a trust so it can never ever be built on. Yeah, what do you call it? Subdivisionitis, I think. I like that word. So it has to remain agricultural for perpetuity. So all of the juice for these wines, this conservancy line of wines, comes from vineyard in that land trust. We've got 5 varietals, and this is one that really been kind of our little rock star. This is red blends are very popular, and I did this as a tribute to Dad last year. It's called Crimson and Clover. It's done well for us, and these are actually some pictures of me tasting it with Dad for the first time in the lab. This was actually the first bottle. And so I wanted to share that with you. Dad said, I think his comments was, it's the best barrel sample I've ever tasted, so feel good. This is inside our barrel room. Just want to show you here, these are some vertical upright barrels, very old barrels from French oak. So we have a lot of technology, but you know, again, you know, we have a lot of tradition as well. You know, as far as, you know, so the first phase, again, of that 10-year project was to get the vineyards in good shape. With that, we became one of the first of 13 wineries certified sustainable. We picked up our organic certification last year. Second phase, build that new winery to get us into the next century. And then we wanted to restore the original winery. So here you have one of the oldest wineries in the United States, and 100 yards from it, you know, you have one of the most modern, and they play very nicely. So we invite you all out to the tasting room. We've got our Underdog wine bar. We serve tapas, light fare food. We've got 48 bottles under argon gas, and we're open 7 days a week with that. And then one more story. So you know, we got a lot of stories. But so back in 1983, it was our centennial, 100 years, big deal. We made up these big 9-liter bottles. It was a 79 vintage John Petit Syrah, really good year here. And so Dad gets this call from the White House. You know, so when the White House calls, you take that call, right? And they said President Reagan is going to Ireland, and he'd like to take a bottle of your wine as the official gift of the United States. And, you know, Dad said, "Oh, you know, we'd be honored." President Reagan, Dad said, Reagan. You know. And so about 2 weeks later, you know, I called the Men in Black show up. You know, this black Suburban comes out, and Secret Service, and you know, they're dressed like you think they'd be very stoic in suits and glasses. And Dad's got one of these 9-liter bottles, and man, he's so proud of this. And this was a big deal because we were only doing about 50,000 cases back then, and they were expensive. And so Dad says, "Please thank President Reagan. We are honored." And these guys are just standing there. And they said, "Well, we need 2 of these." Just like that. "We need 2 of these." And you see the smile going off of Dad's face, and the Irish temper starts coming up, and he goes, "What? 2? Oh my God, these are expensive. I can't just give you 2. What do you need 2 for?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And they said, "Well, we need one as a decoy or a backup, or in case one breaks. You know, some kind of." Yeah, that's what we kind of thought too. And so, you know, Dad's not backing down to these guys. He says, "Well, I just think you're going to drink it," just like that. And so about that time, one of the agents, he kind of does one of these, he kind of whisked his suit coat back, and he had this swivel mount machine gun on a bungee cord, and Dad's like, "Okay, So there's the bottle, the 9-liter bottle. There's President Reagan in Ireland. We've got Air Force One, Marine 1 and 2 in the background there. Dad and I actually met the current president, or the past president of Ireland, a couple of years ago. So it's just important to be proud of your heritage. And so again, there we are. A lot of similarities, you know, with moving forward. Family involved over 130 years. A lot of firsts, things like that. You know, I got some questions ahead of time from you guys, and you know, one was about, you know, when do we harvest? I was actually out last week. We harvest a lot of our fruit at night. We start about 9, 10 o'clock at night, and we'll go to about 5 in the morning. We want to harvest the fruit when it's cool out. You know, if you think about it, if somebody comes up behind you and kind of grabs you, you kind of tense up. We don't want to shock the fruit. We don't want the fermentation to begin with it. So we do a lot of our picking at night. That was one of the questions I got. And I wanted to throw this one up too here. This is our one of our oldest members in our wine club. She came out last weekend. She's 102, and she told me that you know, I said, what do you contribute to, you know, your wonderful life? And she said, you know, a glass of wine every day and bacon. So I like that lady. Bacon and wine. So I want to thank you all very, very much. I wanted to be respectful of your time. And do you have any questions? Oh, okay. We got a first question. Irish whiskey. I guess the wine's not hard enough. We're moving up to spirits. Yeah. So basically, I wanted to do a tribute to, you know, you think, you know, an Irishman making wine, you know, maybe more like whiskey or beer, so that would fit with us. So we think we have the wine thing down pretty good after 130 years. I wanted to do a tribute to my great-grandfather, so I went back to Ireland and I launched last St. Patrick's Day Concannon Irish whiskey. So it's available in the local grocery stores, things like that. I think it's very reasonably priced for the quality of it. So that was a tribute to my great-grandfather. Partnered with an Irish distiller in Ireland, so but to call it Irish whiskey, it has to be matured and aged in Ireland for 4 years. So that's out there and available. It's a nice blended whiskey. Is there a question over here?
Can we go back to your grandfather when he was a kid and see his picture? Back
My
about
grandfather.
3 slides.
3 slides. Okay.
Yeah, which one is your grandfather?
Dad, which one's your dad there? Right there?
Great-grandfather for you.
Right. Well, you're right there. That's
That's
my
your-
great-grandfather. Yeah.
Which one? The tall guy?
Yeah, tall guy.
No, the guy with the
Are you talking about Captain Joe, second
Yeah.
generation?
Yeah.
I think that's him.
That's
there.
Captain Joe?
Yes, sir.
I'll be damned. He was tall too. Like,
As a kid.
was he pretty tall?
John grew up with him.
Oh, he did. He knew him. You're
I
just
knew him.
confirming that. Yes. Question.
You have plans for a restaurant, full-blown restaurant?
Do we have plans for a full-blown restaurant? Well, we're just trying to, not at this time. Maybe down the road. Yeah, I think we're done with construction for, we've the budgets. Yeah, we're good for a while. We've talked about it.
It's so pretty out there.
It is. Thank you. It is nice out there. Yes.
A couple things. First, I wondered if you still made communion wine. I have to ask you that. And second of all, I wonder, are you still going to continue the Shakespeare performances up there?
Oh yeah, good questions. Altar wine we don't make anymore. We made that for 100 years. I was an altar boy for 7 years. I remember those 7 a.m. masses, 18% alcohol, get the day going. But we did that for 100. For the priests, not the altar boys. And Shakespeare, yes, we will have that again this year. Shakespeare in the Vineyard runs typically for a month in September. Yes.
Picking grapes. Do you have machines that pick grapes, and how does a machine pick grapes?
We have 200 acres on our estate. That's all hand harvested. We have 700 acres in Livermore under our control. That's all pretty much hand harvested. And then we have long-term contracts with the Central Coast, which are more of our bigger production vineyards, and that is machine harvested. How does it do it? It straddles all of your vines are up on wires, and so the machine comes with fingers, and it kind of knocks the grapes loose onto a conveyor belt, and it can do the crushing. It can actually do a lot of the processing out in the vineyard. With some of them, it can crush and press and tank the juice and spit the stems out the back and bring it in. So they get pretty fancy, but most of ours is hand picked. Yeah.
Your beautiful aging barrels, the vertical ones that you showed on the slide. Who makes those?
Well, those are from Bordeaux, France. I don't know. Actually, I got a quote to get those redone. Those are 4,000 gallons each. That's about 15,000 bottles of wine. I actually got a quote to get those. It would take. Those are all custom lengths of wood. It would take 3-4 years to get the wood, to age it, and they cost about $40,000 to recreate.
How old are those?
These are probably about 35, 40 years old. Now the wood is inert, it's not giving off any flavor, but the porousness of the wood, it accelerates the oxidation rate of the wine, speeds up the aging process, gives it a soft mid-palate. So these smaller barrels here are kind of our spice rack, but we use this just to condition the wine, the Petit Syrah. Question?
Well, as a member of Rotary for a long time, and my father was a member of this club for a long time, Jim has been a big sponsor of all of our bottles of wine that we get from our donations and stuff. And I want to just thank the Concannons and Jim for doing that for the club and taking care of the club. Sign that say thanks for playing the lottery today, Sam. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
What are the plans for the old Victorian house?
Plans for the old Victorian house. So here's the brain tease of the day. It's 129 years old and nobody's ever lived in it. It was a dentist's office downtown Livermore. They were going to tear it down. It's my understanding our neighbors at the time paid I think like $1 for it, moved it out, sat on the corner in disrepair for years. Then John and Virginia Madden purchased it. We're going to open it up as a B&B, and then we acquired the land. We moved it back to the property. It kind of keeps getting bumped from the budget. We needed to build a new winery, and there's always things. We've restored the outside to its original condition. The inside, We're thinking maybe for value-added hosting, it's 4-bedroom, 5-bath, or we might use it for a high-end food and wine experience one day. Yes.
Different grapes mature at different times, so what's the first and the last? What's the range of harvest time?
All right, that's a great question. What do you pick first, range? So you start with your whites, usually Semillon, Sauvignon Blanc. You're picking your whites first because they have lower, it's all about the sugar level, so whites have lower sugar levels to make the wine, and then you go into your reds. I usually start with maybe Merlot and then into Syrah. Usually finish up with Petit Syrah Cab. Cab we're finishing up with, I think. We've got about 3 days left of our harvest. Harvest looks really good this year. We were about a week late. Last 2 years were some of the coldest years on record. We were about a month late, and we were going on up into almost Thanksgiving last year. So we've got about another 2-3 days left. Looks like a really good year. But you start with your whites and then you end with your reds. Yeah.
How does our per capita wine consumption compare, say, with France or Spain or Italy?
Ours is United States is very big wine consumers and producers compared to Italy and some of the other larger.
What about consumers, though?
Consumers? Yeah, we're very high on, people love their wine in America, yes. The United States is a big market. California represents, the U.S., California represents 35% of our wine sales, so California's huge. Yes?
Yeah, sometimes you have a wide variation of pricing per bottle, within the bottle. What factors do you guys consider when you price a bottle, and do the aging of the wine as well as the year on the bottle have any kind of influence?
Right, influences for the price of a wine. We do. We have wines that you can buy at Safeway for, $7.99 all the way up to, our reserve wines, which I think top out at about $40, $45 a bottle. Variances are the vineyard it comes from. So like that bottle that was just auctioned off, that came from some vines that are 30 years old. Vines are like humans, the older you get, hopefully we get wiser, but maybe we move a little slower, produce a little less fruit. But what you produce is higher quality. So the age of the vines is a big influencer. Higher quality fruit is going into that than maybe the wines under $10. And then the way you process it and handle it. All of our reserve wines are hand sorting versus putting through machines on the larger quantity volume. And then it's the amount of time you hold it for. That wine we just auctioned off, that Captain Joe, we're aging that for 3 years, whereas some of the other less expensive wines might be 12 to 18 months. So it's handling of the product as well as where it's coming from, the vines.
John, give us an idea of what is going on with the wine group. Is that an international group now that you're a part of?
The wine group, yeah. So back in 2002, we partnered with a company called the Wine Group. The Wine Group is a privately held company. We're employee owned. We are set up where we will never go public, which is a good thing. So we can do some things that make sense long term for the brands as well as for the community. We don't have to report to shareholders. We're just now bringing in our 4th generation of owners. So one of our mandates is, you serve your term and then you retire out, and your ownership reverts back to the company. So we can never go public. So the wine group, because we're privately owned, sometimes we frustrate the press a little bit because they want to find out, but that's one of the advantages of being private. You don't have to disclose everything. Very much under the radar. The Wine Group has a lot of, by volume, they're the 2nd largest company, producer in the world, and in the United States, number 3. So you've got Gallo, then the Wine Group, and then other brands like Diageo and Constellation. Those are the 4 big companies. But great partners for us. They've just done so much to, to allow us to make the best quality wine we can at a fair price and get our message out and our distribution out throughout the United States. We're in all 50 states, China, but a great company to work for. They have other brands. They don't acquire brands. They're really good at sourcing juice from around the world and coming up with their own concept labels. They have brands, Cupcake, you might have seen out there, is one of the fastest growing brand 3 years in a row. Flip Flop to go up against Barefoot. But then they're also big into box wine. They own Franzia, Inglenook, Almeda, and Corbett Canyon. So just a very innovative company, good company, very carbon conscious. You know, we bill ourselves as one of the most carbon conscious wineries. Okay, last one.
Eric,
Yes.
what Rotary Club do you belong to?
Oh, well, this one day. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Sorry I went over there a little bit.